prophet asked. When the prophet asked the right question, he said, where did you lose it? Or more importantly, really what he said, where was the last place you saw it? You see, that's the question we should be asking today. Where is the last time you saw the church and felt in the spirit, in that realm, that the church was making the crooked path straight and bringing the roads into the wilderness and speaking streams into the desert? When was the last place that you saw those manifestations where it felt like the church was beginning to rise to its point? I know in my life when it was. In our life, I can go back to the 90s. Doesn't mean that God hasn't moved since the 90s. Please don't be offended. Amen. But I know there's a period of time in the last church that we were in that we saw some miraculous miracles. A 6-week revival. Imagine 6 weeks of revival. I didn't say 6 W-E-A-K. I said 6 W-E-E-K-S weeks of revival. Powerful manifestations of the Spirit. And then, pastor, one of the churches especially, that we talk about a lot in Withrow, we saw some incredible manifestations of God there. Some of the things that still ring so true in my spirit. And some of you are going to identify with this because you're right now thinking about that place where you were at, where you saw something. Let me tell you what I'm talking about, a manifestation. I'm talking about where it was so powerful that you went home after it was over, and months and years and years and years later, you still remember it like it was yesterday, because many of those things were even unexplainable.
Yes. Amen.
When you see something unexplainable, you have a tendency to remember it. You may not remember where you put your keys like me yesterday or today, but you probably remember something that you could not explain. And we saw a few of those things that were unexplainable, that just defied everything, that even the boundaries of things that I had been taught all my life. It expounded that and went beyond, Brother David, even the theological understandings that I mentioned to you. One of those cases was in Whitfield when Brother Floyd LaHunt was there in a mighty powerful meeting. And he walked around, the building was full that night. And he walked around, it was a circle building. He got around to the front of the main entrance there. And there was looked like about a 19-year-old, a young man. And Brother LaHunt just kept on preaching, and just came around. About 15 minutes later, he's circling, he's just kind of walking and preaching. He comes back to the same place, and there's the guy about to get up, and he helps pick him up, and he looks at that boy, and he says, "Son, do you realize what happened to you?" And the boy said, "I don't have a clue." He said, "I don't know what that was." And he said, "Well, let me tell you." He said, "It wasn't a what, it was a who." He said, "That was the power of the Holy Spirit that knocked you down. That was the power of the Spirit." And then he said this amazing thing. He said, "I want to ask you a question." He said, "Are you saved?" And he said, "No." "Who's this girl with you?" And he named her name. "You ever been to this church?" "No, I didn't know it." He said, "I want to pray for her." And he stood right there, took him by the hand, and prayed the sinner's prayer with him, and he accepted Christ. Now, all of that was good, and we had church and went home. On my way home, I'm sitting there and said, "Wait a minute. Wait a minute. That defies everything I ever heard. How can a person fall out in the Spirit and not even know Jesus?" And in that moment that God spoke to me and said, "How dare you question me? I'm bigger than your little box. I'm bigger than your little theology. I can do anything, anywhere, with anybody, at any time that I want to do. I don't have to ask your permission, Pastor." From that moment on, my dimension began to change a little bit. And I began to understand that God exceeds my tradition. God exceeds my understanding. God even exceeds my faith. God sees what I believe or don't believe. That God has no limitations. That God is able to do anything, hallelujah, with any situation. In any way that He chooses.
Hallelujah.
Thank God. You see, here's the problem. When's the last time you went home from church and said what they did in the book of Acts? The old King James reads it like this. We wouldn't say it like this now, but the old King James read, and they said we never saw it on that kind of fashion before. Put it in our language. We never saw anything that looked kind of like that. I'm telling you, when's the last time you went to church and went home and saw something you couldn't explain?
Amen. Yeah.
We've not had many of those services. Because we have, just like in this story, we have desired and said we want to go, like the Church of America, to a next level. We want to go to another place. But in the process of it, we have dropped the edge. We've lost the dynamic. Oh, now we've moved to another place. We got 8-inch cushions to rest our bull tearing upon. Amen. Hallelujah. We've got air conditioning and great sound and lighting, and we've got wonderful edifices and beautiful places. We're glorious and wonderful and marvelous and majestic. It's not a concrete floor anymore, Brother Tom. It's not a sawdust floor. It's not just a simple concrete floor. It's a wonderful place. It's a beautiful edifice. It's acres like God has given us here. It's a wonderful campus. It's great. It's wonderful. It's marvelous. Everything is in place. It looks great. We're only missing one thing. The Acts. Because the Church of America has allowed the Acts to become dull or lost, we still say the same things, we just don't cut as deep anymore.
Amen.
We still holler at demons, they just don't move. I just said it, amen. We still going through the motions. But in many cases, we've lost the edge. We have to say exactly right, Sister Carlene. We have to ask the obvious question. And you think I'm just preaching about this church? Don't get mad and leave. I'm not talking about this house. I'm talking about the church.
Yes.
Blood-washed church. The 280 million in America. The 2 billion on the earth. And somehow, how many? The 584 million spirit-filled and the 70 million of those that are living and residing in the U.S. of A.
Yeah.
And we're not seeing any more than we're seeing with all of that.
Right.
Somebody's got to ask the question that the prophet asked. Where did we lose it? I'll give you a couple of benchmarks where I think we lost it. I think in 1963, come on somebody. And back in 1963, when someone stood up because they were offended that there was prayer going on in the school. And in 1963, because one woman spoke up, and everybody else shut up, a prohibition on state-sponsored prayer school was enacted from that moment to this very moment that I'm preaching this morning. I believe that was a benchmark. And when the church kept silent. I believe another benchmark since 1973. Around 50 million legal induced abortions in the United States of America alone. Let me say that again. 50 million babies since 1963 in America alone. Almost as many as claim to be filled in the Spirit. Taken out before they could ever have a chance to come out of the womb. I think these are benchmarks. Because I think that we have set silent. And it appears to me, every day I live, I see it more. I said, I don't think there could be anything else in the closet. But here comes something else out. It's like everything else has come out of the closet except the church. And we still in closed sessions. The world is still waiting to hear on our answer. What is our answer to abortion? What is our answer to all these babies that have been killed? What is our answer to the fact that our children can't even pray in a public school anymore? What is the answer that before a football game they won't even pray God protect the kids and they don't break their necks? Come on, somebody, because it might offend somebody from somewhere else, another planet somewhere where they flew in and on Delta. Amen. We want to worry about what somebody else said, and they're still waiting. When is the church going to come out of the closet and give a word that the world is waiting to hear? We've heard from every other infidel and idiot. Amen. I got to hush. Oh, my word. Hallelujah. Or y'all will tar and feather me and it'll be another July 4th experience. Amen. Praise God. I want you to watch what happens. The man of God said, where did it sink? And they showed him the place. And he cut off a branch and tossed it at the spot. And the axe head floated up. It's always intrigued me. And I said, I want to understand that. And I think I got a little understanding. Because if you study the Hebrew and you go back, you'll find a couple of very important references. One in the New Testament and one in the Old. I won't touch on this one, but it does bear worth reading. It talks about a fruit-bearing tree. So we have to understand that in the balance of the Spirit, that while we're speaking and declaring demons back to where they came from, and while we're speaking life over our city, and while we're decreeing and declaring this and that, that along with the manifestations, along with the things that we are saying, that there should be some fruit. Because there has been such an imbalance in the church on the gifts of the Spirit, but not the fruit of the Spirit. I thought you'd react just about as powerfully as you just did. Amen. Praise the Lord. I will have to have another drink. Amen. Because we have to have the balance. Because if you really are speaking in the Spirit, and you really are praying in the Spirit, and I'm not just saying preaching it and just saying it and just going through the life, but if you're really doing these things, then the love, peace, joy, long-suffering, goodness, gentleness, meekness, temperance, faith, all of these things the Bible said against, you cannot say one word against. These things have to be evidenced in our lives. I hope that all of the Spirit-filled people, including myself, are in that number, that we are not just dynamic in the Spirit, that we're not just demonstrative in the Spirit, but we are also fruitful in the Spirit. Come on, somebody. Now, I'll preach real good somewhere, someplace. Not here, right? Not right. Amen. Praise God. We're moving on. We're moving on. But the other indication is the one that really caught me. Because the branch or the tree limb that Elisha reached up and cut down and threw into the river. The other indication said the tree of life. And it had the Genesis reference. And I said to myself, in my heart, what would I consider the tree of life to be? Now, don't fall out with me in some theological discussion. I'm not talking about necessarily the one in the garden. I got my opinion. I'll tell you right now, good steak, some French fries will get it to you, amen. But not today. Other day to study, people tell you a good meal will find it for him too, amen. But here's what I asked myself. I said, when I think about the tree of life, there's only one tree in my mind that real life came out of. And it had to be the one that the cross was created from. Because the only life-giving tree, not only in this life, but past this life, could only be the cross.
Amen.
When I began to think about it like that, it just resonated in my spirit. See, I don't know that Elisha in the spirit knew. There's a lot of things, and you will learn this in my course, some of the fantastic things that you guys have been learning, that prophets did things that many of them didn't even understand in the moment why they said it, or necessarily why they even did it. Because it would point to the cross. It would point to Jesus. It would point to the tabernacle. It would point to the brazen altar. It would point to the Holy of Holies. It would point to a time that would come. I don't know if Elisha even knew what it meant when he reached up and grabbed and cut that tree down. But I believe that of all the things that it could have symbolically been, I believe at the heart of it is that it represented the cross of Jesus Christ. And here's the reason I believe that with all my heart. It's because the Bible said that when that branch was put into the river, and then the axe head floated to the top. Meaning the order of God specific. Because what does the cross represent in my life and in your life? The same thing that it represented in Jesus' life. What he did for the whole world applies to us personally.